All
Again,
right. Oftentimes, when discussing politics, people have the tendency to use terms and words that they don't understand. Or better said, the people using them are using them incorrectly. Think of the way people use the words racist, Nazi, or genocide in lieu of a thing I just don't like. How about gender affirming care when, in fact, they're talking about using drugs and surgeries to do anything but affirm the person's God given gender? What about free universal health care instead of the more appropriate taxpayer funded healthcare? I think you guys get the point. Now, the word I'd like to focus on today is scandal, as in the fact that Joe Biden has stage 4 prostate cancer is one of the biggest scandals in American history. I'm actually somewhat bothered by how the general public seems to be taking this news. Maybe it's just me, but it kind of feels like the mainstream coverage of this boils down to Joe Biden has cancer. In other news, Trump deports multiple rapists and murderers, robbing the victims' families of having justice in an American courtroom. It's the scandal of the century. So, what does the word scandal actually mean? A quick Google search brought up a plethora of options, so I figured I might as well just share what the legal definition of the word is, which is scandal refers to disgraceful, shameful, or degrading acts or conduct that brings about disgrace and offends the moral sensibilities of society. Now, I'll admit the fact that an 82-year-old man having prostate cancer is not earth shattering news, but it's the cherry on top of the disaster that was the Biden presidency. The Joe Biden track record should be synonymous with the word scandal, and that dates back to the 80s when this jackass had to abandon his presidential run because he was caught plagiarizing. Disgraceful. How about that time Joe Biden led a modern day lynching when he tried defaming Clarence Thomas in an effort to block his appointment to the Supreme Court? Shameful. You want some degrading acts or conduct that brings about disgrace? I urge you all to look up videos of the leader of the free world falling off of a bicycle or tripping up the stairs of Air Force One. What about that time he fell down on stage because he walked into a giant sandbag? Or that time he needed the Easter Bunny to help him exit stage left? Better yet, just go back and watch the presidential debate that ended his reelection bid. Disgrace is not a strong enough word for that embarrassment. It's safe to say that Joe Biden's entire political career has an aura of scandal surrounding it. Don't forget that I didn't even mention his wealth accumulation on a public servant's salary, or his blackmailing of Ukrainian officials, or his storage of classified documents in his garage, or his crackhead son. I mean, come on, Jack. He's just an old guy that likes ice cream. Joe Biden is a sleazy politician and always has been, and he will remain a sleazy politician until the day he dies. It's just who he is. The real scandal here is from the mainstream media, and that's who I'm most annoyed with today. These people knew this guy was a corrupt, senile scumbag from basically the moment he stepped into the White House, and they covered it up. Partly because of their hatred for Donald Trump, but mostly for their lust for power and control. Long ago, the media traded in their pursuit for the truth in exchange for it just a seat at the table. It's the same mindset that leads to my frustration with local sports reporters these days. The guys that are supposed to ask tough and awkward questions would rather keep a friendly rapport with the players and manager than speak truth to power, if you will. We all witnessed firsthand as Joe Biden physically and mentally melted down right in front of our eyes. And if we pointed it out, we were shouted down as crazy MAGA extremists. Not only that, but we were told this about the man that was a vegetable in the Oval Office. Juice?
Your tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth.
He's sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
I don't have any concerns, and that's from personal interactions.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever. Not a close second.
Alert, sound.
I mean, the Republicans are like good at distractions.
I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And if the Democrats were honest, they'd admit President Biden's mental capacity is declining. 6 in 10 Americans don't have confidence in Joe Biden's mental capacity.
Then you have the liberal media told bad things about me and members of the Oversight Committee because we have the audacity to investigate.
Giving us their drive-by diagnoses of the President of the United States.
Congressman, what you are suggesting is that I omit portions of my reasoning and explanation to the Attorney General for political reasons.
Democrats get into a frenzy.
Do you think people close to President Biden are being honest about his mental state?
And these slip-ups kind of happen.
I mean, there should be no concern.
So I don't really care if he was off for 90 minutes and didn't put on like people wanted him to put on.
I saw no more in his declaration than I've seen in anybody else.
Sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
This is a very sharp president.
Incredibly sharp, incredibly probing.
He is sharp. He is on top of things.
The president has no impairment.
Nobody's buying that. No. Nobody's buying what he's selling.
And the pipeline of videos that aren't telling the full truth.
All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
The same right-wing influences that are trying to take me down are trying to take down President Biden.
Now, Juice, that's the equivalent of these aren't the droids you're looking for. Are you kidding me? Sharp is the last word I'd use to describe Joe Biden. The Joe Scarborough one gets me every single time. This is the sharpest version of Biden. In the words of Joe Biden, that's just malarkey.
Dude,
this
and then
man,
Claiborne, whatever, him, he's telling people that Biden's sharp, the black man there.
No good.
And then KJP, dude, forgot about her.
Brutal.
Sorry, continue. I said there's a couple, that was so insulting to watch.
Horrible.
Sorry, go.
Crazy. Now, this man was never sharp, and he certainly wasn't the sharpest he's ever been over the course of the last 3 to 4 years. If you're one of the 15 people that still tune in to CNN and MSNBC at this point, what else do you need to see to realize the news is telling you what they want you to hear in order to try and convince you to vote Democrat? This is the part where it escalates to offending the moral sensibilities of society. The media and the Democrat political machine have been actively working side by side for decades at this point. Over the last 5 years, they've told us not to wear masks, then told us we have to wear masks. They told us that we couldn't have cookouts in our backyards. But then they also told us that we should gather by the thousands to protest racial injustice. They told us that riots were mostly peaceful protests. They told us that an actual mostly peaceful protest was the darkest day in American history. They told us that the COVID vax would prevent transmission. Then they told us that the vax will just make your symptoms less severe, as long as you continue to take the boosters. What are we on, like shot number 62 at this point? They told us that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation, until they finally admitted that that was all BS 3 years later, when at that point it didn't really matter anymore. And they shouted down and ridiculed anyone that wondered who was really running the country, because it was obvious that Joe Biden wasn't doing it. Joe Biden told us all that he had cancer back in July of 2022, and the media covered it up by once again trying to convince us all that we didn't just hear what we just heard. Listen to this one and tell me if Joe Biden magically developed stage 4 prostate cancer. Juice?
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Now, I guess we can all be guilty of not harping on that more at the time, but this is where Joe Biden's stupidity worked to his advantage. This is why Biden is the perfect stooge president. The guy flubbed and admitted to having cancer, and the whole world just shrugged and said, there goes Joe again, rambling like a moron, doing the old cancer bit. And once again, the few people that tried to ask questions about it, they were labeled conspiracy theorists. At this point, if the Democrat Party and the media ever hope to regain credibility, they'll need to fire the staffers that orchestrated this scandal, vote out the politicians that masterminded this scandal, and replace the news anchors that sold this scandal. I, for one, am not holding my breath waiting for that to happen. And with that being said, I do believe it's time to welcome in our good friend, Mr. Ric Flair, because it is showtime, baby. Woo!
Showtime! Woo!